Hello everyone. Today, we're diving into a very important topic, rewilding Indian rhinos in Europe. This is a subject that brings together conservation efforts, historical ecosystems, and the future of wildlife. The history of rhinos in Europe is fascinating, as these incredible creatures once roamed across the continent. But today, we're going to explore what it means to bring them back, why it's important, and how it can benefit our environment. We'll also cover the benefits of rewilding Indian rhinos in Europe, not only for the rhinos, but also for the ecosystem as a whole. From restoring landscapes to promoting biodiversity, these animals play a key role in maintaining a healthy environment. Next, we'll discuss where you can rewild Indian rhinos in Europe, exploring areas that could provide the right habitat for them to thrive, and how rewilding can support larger conservation goals. We'll also talk about how Indian rhinos can survive the winter in Europe, as this is an important aspect to consider when thinking about their reintroduction in colder climates. Lastly, we'll take a closer look at the interaction with wildlife, how Indian rhinos can fit into European ecosystems and interact with native wildlife, like wolves, wild boar, and even future species that could be rewilded. This is an exciting and meaningful discussion, and I'm glad you're here to learn with me. Let's get started. The history of rhinos in Europe. Rhinos, though now associated primarily with Africa and Asia, once roamed the European continent. Fossil evidence indicates that ancient rhinoceros species, including woolly rhinos, thrived during the Pleistocene epoch. These magnificent creatures, equipped for survival in diverse climates, were an integral part of Europe's megafauna, sharing their habitats with mammoths and cave lions. However, environmental changes and human pressures contributed to their extinction around 10,000 years ago. Today, as Europe explores rewilding to restore ecosystems and revive lost ecological functions, the reintroduction of rhinos, a species absent for millennia, offers both a challenge and an unprecedented opportunity. Why Indian rhinos? The Indian rhinoceros, Rhinoceros unicornis, also known as the greater one-horned rhino, is an excellent candidate for rewilding in Europe. Native to floodplains, grasslands, and wetlands of the Indian subcontinent, this species boasts unique ecological traits that make it adaptable to similar habitats in Europe. Unlike the critically endangered Javan and Sumatran rhinos, Indian rhinos have a relatively stable population thanks to ongoing conservation efforts, allowing for sustainable relocation projects. Their dietary habits, grazing on grasses, shrubs, and aquatic plants, align with the resources found in Europe's restored floodplains and wetlands. Moreover, their behavior, including wallowing and seed dispersal, can reinvigorate ecosystems in need of keystone species. Why are Indian rhinos suitable for Europe? Europe's landscape has undergone significant ecological transformation, yet many areas, such as the Danube Delta, the Rhine-Meuse floodplain, and Iberian wetlands, resemble the rhinos' native environments. Climate models suggest that these regions are capable of supporting Indian rhinos without causing undue ecological disruption. Moreover, Europe's thriving conservation network, with its expansive nature reserves, national parks, and wildlife corridors, provides a robust framework for the safe introduction and long-term monitoring of Indian rhinos. Why does Europe need rhinos? The rewilding of Indian rhinos addresses multiple ecological and societal needs. As mega herbivores, Indian rhinos play a crucial role in shaping landscapes. Their grazing maintains open grasslands, prevents forest encroachment, and enhances biodiversity. Additionally, their dung acts as a fertilizer, enriching the soil and supporting microhabitats for insects and other species. The rhino's reintroduction could symbolize Europe's commitment to reversing biodiversity loss and reconnecting with its ecological heritage. Large, charismatic species like rhinos attract ecotourism, providing economic incentives for conservation and community development. Restoring wetlands and grasslands for rhino habitats can improve carbon sequestration, mitigate flooding, and enhance water quality. Benefits of rewilding Indian rhinos in Europe. Indian rhinos can restore balance to ecosystems by interacting with flora and fauna in ways smaller herbivores cannot. By modifying vegetation structure, Rhinos support a ripple effect that benefits insects, birds, and predators. Rewilding projects can inspire a new generation of conservationists and create platforms for public awareness about species conservation and ecosystem management. This initiative fosters international cooperation between Asia and Europe, setting a precedent for conservation-driven partnerships. The potential reintroduction of Indian rhinos into Europe isn't merely about restoring a lost megafauna, it's about redefining humanity's relationship with nature. By embracing the rhino as a symbol of resilience and ecological harmony, Europe can take a bold step toward a greener, more interconnected future. Coexisting with humans in Europe. Reintroducing Indian rhinos to Europe offers an opportunity to restore ecosystems while fostering coexistence with humans. Rhinos, as gentle herbivores, can thrive in well-managed reserves near human settlements, just as other large species like European bison and deer do. Where to reintroduce Indian rhinos into Europe? The successful reintroduction of Indian rhinos requires careful selection of suitable habitats that mimic their native environment. These areas must provide ample food, water, space, and protection while being integrated into larger conservation frameworks. Why the Danube Delta? The Danube Delta is one of Europe's largest wetlands, with extensive floodplains, reed beds, and grasslands that resemble the Indian rhino's native habitats. It provides an abundance of aquatic plants, grasses, and water sources essential for rhinos. Indian rhinos can help manage vegetation overgrowth, maintain open wetlands, and support biodiversity by creating habitats for birds, fish, and amphibians. Why the Rhine-Meuse Delta? This region has undergone significant restoration to re-establish floodplains and wetlands. The temperate climate, combined with accessible grasslands and water, makes it a promising location for Indian rhinos. Reintroducing rhinos could enhance soil fertility, support vegetation diversity, and complement ongoing rewilding efforts in the area, such as the return of beavers and large herbivores like wild cattle. Why Camargue? The Camargue is a vast wetland in southern France, characterized by brackish lagoons, marshes, and grasslands. Its climate is relatively mild, and the region already supports large herbivores such as horses and bulls, indicating that it could sustain Indian rhinos. Indian rhinos could contribute to the management of invasive vegetation, foster biodiversity, and strengthen ecotourism in the region. Why the Pannonian Steppe? This area combines expansive grasslands and wetland regions that are ideal for grazing megafauna. Past conservation successes, such as the reintroduction of European bison, suggest that the region could support Indian rhinos. Rhinos would serve as ecosystem engineers, promoting plant diversity and restoring natural processes that have been lost due to agricultural expansion. Why Iberian wetlands? Areas such as Donana National Park in Spain and the Tagus River floodplains in Portugal offer habitats with seasonal wetlands, grasslands, and forests. These areas could support rhino populations while benefiting from their role as keystone species. Rhinos can help manage wetland ecosystems by preventing overgrowth, supporting bird life, and restoring water flow patterns. Why Kiskun-Sag? This park contains a unique mosaic of wetlands, grasslands, and sand dunes that can provide a suitable environment for Indian rhinos. The region's climate and vegetation are comparable to parts of the rhino's native range. Indian rhinos could help control invasive species and revitalize the grasslands, promoting a richer, more diverse ecosystem. Why the Oder floodplains? The Oder River floodplains are a vast expanse of grasslands, wetlands, and forests that regularly flood, creating rich ecosystems similar to the rhino's natural habitats. Efforts to restore the area as part of the European Greenbelt Initiative provide a solid foundation for species reintroductions. Indian rhinos could aid in wetland management by preventing the overgrowth of aquatic vegetation, maintaining open water channels, and supporting aquatic biodiversity. Why the Balkans wetlands? The Balkans feature a variety of wetlands, such as Lake Skadar, Neretva Delta, and Olszynji Salina, which are rich in biodiversity and well-suited for megafauna. These regions are often underrepresented in large-scale conservation efforts, but hold immense potential. Indian rhinos could help restore wetland ecosystems, benefiting waterfowl, fish, and aquatic vegetation, while boosting regional ecotourism. Indian rhinos can potentially adapt to European winters, including snow, with certain considerations and appropriate management. Here's why. Natural adaptability of Indian rhinos. Indian rhinos have thick, armor-like skin that provides natural insulation, protecting them from cold temperatures to some extent. While they are native to warmer climates, their skin structure can help them endure moderate cold conditions. Indian rhinos often wallow in mud and water to regulate body temperature in hot climates. In colder climates, they could adapt by seeking natural windbreaks, using dense vegetation for shelter, and changing activity patterns to conserve energy. Similarity to historical conditions in Europe. Indian rhinos' ancestors, like the woolly rhinoceros, Coelodonta antiquitatis, thrived in cold climates, suggesting that rhinoceros species can adapt to colder environments. While the Indian rhino is not a direct descendant of the woolly rhino, its resilience and ability to thrive in diverse conditions indicate potential adaptability to cooler climates. Examples of cold adaptation in captivity. Indian rhinos are successfully kept in zoos across Europe, including countries with harsh winters, such as Germany and the Netherlands. In these settings, rhinos live comfortably with access to heated shelters during extreme cold. Indian rhinos in zoos have shown the ability to adjust their behavior, such as reducing water use during freezing temperatures and increasing food intake for extra energy. Habitat preparation for winters in Europe. In the wild, reintroduced rhinos would need access to natural shelters, such as dense vegetation to protect them from extreme cold, wind, and snow. Supplemental feeding may be necessary during winter when natural forage becomes scarce. This could include hay, browse, and specially prepared diets. Wetlands and floodplains areas like the Danube Delta and Rhine-Meuse floodplains are relatively mild during winters and offer ample resources. Sheltered microclimates. Floodplains and forests provide natural windbreaks and warmer conditions compared to open landscapes. While Indian rhinos can tolerate cold to a degree, extreme sub-zero temperatures might necessitate additional measures, such as selecting regions with milder winters. Indian rhinos are likely to adapt to European winters, including snow, particularly in areas with temperate climates and mild winters, such as southern and central Europe. Rewilding Indian rhinos in Europe could succeed, even in regions that experience seasonal snowfall. Lessons from other species. The successful reintroduction of other large herbivores, such as European bison and wild horses, in colder regions of Europe, demonstrates that, with proper management, Indian rhinos can adapt and thrive in these environments as well. Introducing Indian rhinos into ecosystems with other wildlife like large herbivores and large carnivores could create a dynamic and diverse ecosystem. Both Indian rhinos and deer are herbivores, but rhinos tend to graze on tougher, coarse grasses and shrubs, while deer are more likely to browse on softer vegetation and young shoots. This means they wouldn't compete heavily for food, but could share grazing grounds. Rhinos grazing can create open spaces, which could be beneficial for deer populations, providing them with clearings for browsing. Rhinos could also help to prevent vegetation from becoming too dense, maintaining a healthy ecosystem for deer. Like deer, moose and Indian rhinos could coexist, as both are herbivores with overlapping diets. However, moose tend to prefer browsing on shrubs and trees, while rhinos focus on grasslands and wetland vegetation. Rhinos could influence moose habitat by maintaining open grasslands, while moose might help control shrub and tree growth, creating a balance in the landscape. Wild boars are omnivores and will eat roots, fruits, and smaller plants. While they don't directly compete with Indian rhinos for grazing, there could be competition over certain food resources, such as fruits or root crops. Wild boars' digging behavior could disturb the soil and expose new types of vegetation, which rhinos might then graze on. Boars and rhinos may influence each other's foraging patterns. Wild horses and Indian rhinos are both grazers, but horses typically graze on grass and herbs, while rhinos eat tougher vegetation. they are likely to coexist without much direct competition for food. Both species could play a role in shaping the landscape, with rhinos creating open spaces and wild horses contributing to the grassland management. Horses may also benefit from rhinos' wallowing areas as water sources. Kulan, wild donkeys, are herbivores and would share grazing land with Indian rhinos. There may be some overlap in food sources, but it's unlikely to result in significant competition. Kulan could help in maintaining the grasslands, which rhinos also rely on, leading to a balanced ecosystem where both species benefit from the open spaces created by each other's grazing. Indian rhinos and European bison. Both species are large herbivores with similar grazing habits. However, European bison are more forest-dwelling and prefer browsing on woody vegetation, while rhinos prefer open grasslands. Rhinos and bison could help maintain grassland and forest balance, with bison grazing on shrubs and trees and rhinos focusing on grasslands. Together, they could prevent overgrowth in either ecosystem, benefiting each other's habitats. Wild cattle are grazers, and while there may be some overlap in the vegetation they consume, wild cattle tend to be more adaptable to a range of environments. Rhinos could help maintain the open grasslands that are beneficial to both species. Cattle could help by creating additional clearings for rhinos, while rhinos could help by preventing overgrowth in shared grazing areas. Water buffalo and rhinos both love wetlands and wallowing in mud, which could create mutual benefits. Water buffalo might clear vegetation around water sources, and rhinos could maintain the wetland ecosystem by grazing. Both species might use the same mud wallows, which could foster peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit in wetland environments. Asian elephants and Indian rhinos have some overlap in their diets, but elephants are much more varied in their diet, including trees, shrubs, and grasses. The two species could coexist without significant competition, especially if they occupy different ecological niches. Elephants can help by clearing large amounts of vegetation, which creates open spaces for rhinos. Rhinos, in turn, could help maintain grasslands that elephants might use as feeding grounds. Both species have the potential to significantly impact the landscape in complementary ways. Ibex are herbivores that graze on grasses and shrubs, but they are more adapted to rocky, mountainous areas than rhinos. Rhinos prefer grasslands and wetlands. As a result, their habitats could overlap in some areas, but the species likely won't compete heavily for food. Rhinos could help maintain open grasslands that may benefit ibex, especially during the summer months when grasslands are more productive. The presence of both species could help maintain healthy ecosystems, with ibex grazing on higher vegetation and rhinos managing lower-level plants. Mouflons, wild sheep that graze on grasses and shrubs, share a similar diet with rhinos. However, they tend to occupy forested and hilly areas, while rhinos prefer open grasslands. There could be minimal competition for food, as the grazing areas used by mouflons are different from those preferred by rhinos. Rhinos' grazing behavior might encourage more open space, which could be beneficial for mouflons, allowing them access to food sources while also benefiting the landscape. Chamois are agile, mountain-dwelling herbivores that graze on grasses, herbs, and shrubs, primarily in rugged terrain. Rhinos, on the other hand, are large, slow-moving creatures more suited to flat or wetland areas. There is unlikely to be direct competition between these species, as their habitats and grazing preferences differ. However, they might share certain alpine areas in the summer, where both species could coexist peacefully, each benefiting from the diverse range of vegetation in the region. Beavers are known for creating wetlands by building dams, which could have a significant impact on the landscape rhinos inhabit. Rhinos are also attracted to wetlands and wallow in mud, and beavers could enhance these wetland habitats by providing water retention areas. Beavers' activity of dam building could improve water quality and create new wetland areas that rhinos would use for wallowing. In turn, rhinos grazing and trampling may help clear vegetation around beaver dams, making the environment more suitable for both species. Otters inhabit wetlands and freshwater habitats, where rhinos are also found. Otters might benefit from the creation of wetland areas that rhinos enjoy. especially where rhinos create wallows and mud pools. While otters are aquatic and focused on hunting for fish, and rhinos are terrestrial herbivores, their presence in shared habitats can contribute to a balanced ecosystem. Otters may thrive in a rich wetland environment supported by rhino activity. Small mammals such as rodents, rabbits, and other ground-dwelling species would likely not compete directly with rhinos for food. Instead, these mammals may benefit from the open spaces created by rhino grazing, which could provide more foraging opportunities. The disturbance rhinos cause while feeding or wallowing can create new burrowing opportunities for small mammals, increasing their habitat options. Also, the presence of large mammals like rhinos may help deter predators from hunting smaller mammals. The presence of Indian rhinos could indirectly benefit bird species in a variety of ways. Rhinos can create open, grassy areas that provide foraging opportunities for birds, especially ground-dwelling species like quail, grouse, or pheasants. The mud wallows that rhinos create can also attract birds, which might use the mud for cooling off or to catch insects. Larger birds of prey may also benefit from rhinos, scavenging carcasses or taking advantage of disturbed ground for food. Rhinos' grazing and wallowing behavior can create new microhabitats for reptiles. The open spaces rhinos help create could attract reptiles like lizards, snakes, and turtles that prefer sunny, warm habitats. Rhinos could also help maintain a balance in vegetation, preventing overgrowth that could suffocate reptile habitats. However, caution is needed to ensure that the presence of large rhinos doesn't destroy fragile habitats like those of ground-dwelling reptiles. Amphibians, such as frogs and salamanders, depend on moist, wet environments for breeding and survival. The presence of Indian rhinos in wetland areas could create and enhance these habitats through their wallowing behavior. As rhinos wallow in mud or swim in water, they may help create pools or wetland areas where amphibians can lay eggs or find refuge. Additionally, amphibians might benefit from the abundance of insects around rhinos' feeding areas, helping maintain a balanced food chain. Reintroducing Indian rhinos into a European ecosystem alongside large carnivores would create an intricate web of predator-prey dynamics. Eurasian wolves are apex predators and could pose a threat to young or weakened Indian rhinos, especially if they are in packs. However, healthy adult rhinos are large and formidable animals with thick skin and a strong defense mechanism, making it unlikely for wolves to attack adults unless they have no other food source. Wolves could help regulate populations of herbivores that compete with rhinos for food, such as deer or smaller mammals. This could indirectly benefit rhinos by reducing grazing competition. Additionally, the presence of wolves could keep the landscape in balance by controlling populations of smaller predators and scavengers. Feral dogs might pose a greater threat than wolves to young or sick rhinos. In packs, they could potentially harass or even attempt to bring down a weaker rhino. However, adult rhinos are likely to defend themselves effectively. Feral dogs may compete with rhinos for resources, especially if they also inhabit similar grassland or wetland areas. However, given the rhino's large size and preference for wetland environments, the overlap may be minimal. Golden jackals are opportunistic scavengers and might prey on the young, sick, or injured rhinos. However, like with wolves, healthy adult rhinos are less vulnerable. Jackals might scavenge carcasses of smaller herbivores or other animals killed by predators, but their interaction with rhinos would likely be limited, with jackals finding it safer to avoid direct conflict. Red foxes are small predators that generally target smaller mammals, birds, and insects. They would not pose a significant threat to rhinos and would likely avoid them, especially adult rhinos. The presence of Indian rhinos could indirectly benefit foxes by maintaining a diverse landscape that includes open spaces and wetlands, which provide ideal habitats for small mammals and birds that foxes hunt. Brown bears and Indian rhinos might share some habitat, particularly in wetlands and forests. While bears are omnivores and primarily forage for berries, plants, and small mammals, they could also scavenge rhino carcasses if a rhino dies. Bears may pose a threat to young rhinos, but would avoid healthy adults. Since rhinos are herbivores, there would be minimal competition for resources, but interactions could involve occasional clashes, especially over territory or carcasses. Bears' ability to create disturbance in an ecosystem could complement the rhino's role in maintaining grasslands. Eurasian lynx are solitary hunters of small to medium-sized prey, such as hares, rabbits, and birds. They would not pose a threat to rhinos but could indirectly benefit from the same habitats, using the underbrush and open grasslands created by rhinos. Lynx help control smaller herbivore populations, such as roe deer and wild boar. By reducing smaller prey populations, lynx could help prevent overgrazing and support vegetation that rhinos also feed on. Persian leopards are powerful predators that could pose a threat to young or vulnerable Indian rhinos. However, they would likely avoid adult rhinos unless they are in a weakened state. Leopards are solitary hunters and typically prefer smaller prey, such as deer, wild boar, or smaller mammals. Persian leopards might regulate populations of smaller herbivores that could compete with rhinos for resources. The interaction would likely involve minimal direct conflict, but leopards could influence the structure of the food web. Asiatic lions, as apex predators, could potentially pose a threat to young or weak rhinos, particularly if they hunt in groups. However, adult rhinos are powerful and would pose a serious challenge to lions. Lions could help regulate herbivore populations and reduce competition for food by targeting smaller herbivores, which might benefit rhinos by reducing grazing pressure. The presence of lions could also affect how rhinos interact with their environment, as lions may displace them from certain areas. Spotted hyenas are skilled scavengers and could scavenge carcasses of rhinos if they die. Hyenas might also target weak or young individuals, though healthy adult rhinos would likely be safe. Hyenas might compete with rhinos for carcasses or food resources, but would likely avoid direct confrontations with large adult rhinos. Their presence in the ecosystem could promote scavenging behavior, which plays a vital role in nutrient recycling. Why do we have to rewild these majestic Indian rhinos to the wild in Europe and allow them to interact with native wildlife, as well as future species? It's simple. Rewilding brings back the balance to ecosystems that have been disrupted over centuries. Indian rhinos, with their immense size and unique behaviors, play a critical role in shaping landscapes. They help maintain grasslands, wetlands, and biodiversity by grazing, wallowing, and creating habitats for countless other species. By introducing them back into these ecosystems alongside native wildlife like deer, wolves, and bears, and planning for the future with species like the Asiatic lion and Persian leopard, we can help restore natural predator-prey dynamics, support ecological resilience, and preserve the richness of our planet's biodiversity for generations to come. It's not just about preserving one species, it's about healing the planet and making space for all creatures to thrive together. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate your support and interest in the important work of rewilding and conservation. Together, we can make a difference. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos on this fascinating journey. See you in the next one.